Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I am testing a car that I actually haven't had a chance to drive yet, even though it's been on the market for the last 5 years. That's right beside me, Volvo has just dropped off this vehicle here. This is their flagship luxury sedan, a 2021 Volvo S90. More specifically, this is the S90 Recharge, a plug-in hybrid version of this car that offers 400 horsepower, goes up to 21 miles on electric-only range. And as you can see, Volvo gave it some slight styling tweaks for 2021. This is one of the biggest mid-size luxury sedans that you can buy. So if you guys are in the market for a luxury sedan, you don't want a crossover and you want something different versus your neighbor's German or Japanese competition, how does this new S90 Recharge stack up? That's what we're here to find out. So the S90 is Volvo's largest sedan. This car came to the market back in 2017 when it replaced the S80. Remember, the S80 was their previous flagship luxury sedan. Volvo's been offering one for the last 30 plus years or so. And this one here, of course, is riding on the SPA, the Scalable Product Architecture platform that was first introduced on the XC90. And to be honest, even though it was just refreshed this year, it still looks pretty new. And you can see coming up to the front fascia of this 2021 model, you'd be really hard pressed to spot the differences between this and the 2020 model. This particular one here that I'm showing you is the Recharge, the T8 plug-in hybrid, like I said. It's also the Inscription model. On the T8, you could take your pick between an R design and the Inscription. You can tell this is the Inscription, of course, from the bright chrome accents. The grille has a bright accent to it. There's a chrome piece here that's underneath the rear, or that's in the lower front fascia. This has, of course, been kind of smoothed out for 2021. There are no LED fog lights. Instead, you kind of have these all-weather lights that are integrated into the headlights. And then, of course, in typical Volvo fashion, you have these full adaptive LED headlights with their signature Thor's hammer LED. It has an LED daytime running light and LED turn signals. And the headlights and the overall design, for me, have aged particularly well. I mean, this is still a very striking car when you see it going down the road. And to be honest, I completely forgot about the S90 because I haven't had a chance to drive one of these yet when this generation first came out. You don't see very many of these because Volvo doesn't sell very many. Remember, everybody buys crossovers. You see a ton of XC90s and XC60s and even some V60 cross countries and some V90s, but the sedan version of this car is certainly much more unique. And you know what? It has a very stately, understated presence to it. This is actually the biggest car that Volvo makes at 200 inches long. This is 5 inches longer than an XC90. Its wheelbase is 120 inches long, which is again 3 inches longer than an XC90. Volvo actually made this car longer for 2018 because when this car first came to market, it had a 195-inch overall length. So they made this longer. This is essentially the same model that they build for China because we'll talk about that huge back seat in just a moment. Now, taking a look at the wheels, this one here has an optional 20-inch wheel for $1,000. These are the wheels that you got on the Inscription. They're wrapped in 245 wood tires. Remember, all-wheel drive is standard on this car. And even though this is a front-drive based car, which the S90 comes standard with all-wheel drive, this new platform allowed Volvo to really push the front wheels out to the corners. So it really has a lot of a rear drive stance to it. Now, again, walking around the side of this vehicle, you can really see the size of this thing. It's just a massively huge car. It's much larger than a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, a BMW 5 Series, an Audi A6. And then above the car here, you can see nice panoramic roof, although it doesn't take up the entire roof panel. There is some painted portions of the panel. And then looking over at the rear, you can see it has a traditional sedan shape, but I like how Volvo has refreshed the taillights this year. They kind of added a darker red tint to them. They are a full LED design. I think these taillights look a lot better versus the pre-refreshed models. And then you can see here, there's a T8 Recharge badge, which is now how they're labeling their T8 models in general because these are, remember, a plug-in hybrid. There's no visible exhaust tips. I was surprised to see that on the T8 model here. I'm wondering if the T6 has some visible exhaust tips. And then if you open up the trunk, my tester, of course, has a power opening and closing trunk lid. And I was also surprised to see that the battery pack doesn't really take up any trunk space. You get around 13.5 cubic feet, which is actually a little bit on the small side. A BMW 5 Series offers more. You can see here's the level 1 charger for the vehicle right there. And then underneath here, there's no spare. Instead, there's somewhat of a little bit of storage. And then the seats look like they just have a pass-through. Actually, it looks like they actually fold down in a 60-40 manner, which is nice because before, luxury cars didn't even offer that feature. So let's move on to the interior of the 2021 Volvo S90. As you can see, the platinum gray exterior of my tester is augmented by this really beautiful looking blonde leather interior. This is the fully upgraded Napa premium leather that my tester has. The seats are also adjustable in like 14 different ways. They're heated, cooled, and massaging because I have the lounge package. And this is still a pretty nice interior. It constantly makes me forget that it's been on the market for a few years now. But you can see, looking inside at this cabin at a glance, if you guys have been inside some modern Volvo interiors, this is going to look very familiar. This center stack is identical to the last S60, which is the smaller version, the smaller sedan version of this vehicle, which is about a foot shorter. You can see the door panel has a really nice looking material with the wood, with the Bowers & Wilkins sound for $3,200. Really like the two-tone look and the real stitching on the door panels. When I shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, although Volvo does not offer soft closed doors like you can get on the XC90, so kind of keep that in mind. Now here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see, like other Volvos, it's a very nice looking key. It's wrapped in the same soft leather as the seats, although they used to color match the leather. My guess is Volvo decided to go with a black key leather instead of the light color, because the light color will get dirty pretty quick. You can see the start stop switch is over here by the center console, and it's a knob that you turn over to the right. But once you turn on the car, you can see there's no traditional starter noise, because remember, I have the T8 plug-in hybrid model, so it kind of just whirs to life. It says ready there in that makeshift tack. You can see the rest of this cabin is full of premium materials. I want to talk about the seats really quick though, because these premium Napa seats are pretty comfortable, soft, supportive. You can see there's a cool little Swedish flag that's embroidered into the side over here to remind you you're driving something a little bit special. And the massage, the backrest massage, is one of the best ones that I've felt in the industry. Right up there, of course, with Mercedes-Benz and Audi, which is, of course, really nice. The dash has a really nice custom stitched leather. This is genuine leather, real wood grain, which looks absolutely beautiful. If you guys go for the R design, Volvo only offers a black interior with contrasting white stitching and sport seats with some aluminum mesh material. So if you want the real wood, I highly recommend going for the Inscription model. Looking over at the door panels, like I said earlier, beautiful metal speaker covers here for the 19 speaker Bowers & Wilkins stereo. For $3,000, it's worth every penny. The window switches also have a nice premium tactile feel to them. You have two-person memory seats, which is good. You have a metal accented door handle, which is nice. The one thing about Volvos that really annoys me, however, for a flagship luxury sedan, and I have the same gripe with the XC90, why is the steering wheel not power tilt and telescoping? It's a manual tilt telescoping design, which offers a good amount of adjustability, but at this price range, you should expect a power folding or tilt telescoping wheel. So I think Volvo seriously needs to jump on that. I like the heads-up display, although it is looking a little small compared to some of the competitors. I also like the 12.3-inch fully digital instrument panel, which you can adjust the way this looks based on your drive mode, or you can kind of change it. I have it in the performance setting with the red gauges, which do look nice. You could also put your map in the center there. It's not quite as beautiful as what you find from Audi and Mercedes with their, MBUX and virtual cockpit, but Volvo has been, of course, doing a decent job there. You can see the 9-inch Sensus Connect touchscreen here is starting to look a little bit small. You can see CarPlay is right here. Android Auto is also included. However, it is not wireless. So the infotainment system is starting to show a little bit of its age, and the fact that it's 3 inches smaller than most of its competitors, and the fact that the CarPlay doesn't take up the whole screen and it's not wireless. But the resolution and the graphics are fine. Volvo's been kind of beefing up the processor over the years. You can see there's what your home screen looks like. If you go to your regular GPS, you can make the GPS a little bit bigger, where it takes up the whole screen, which is nice. But the map graphics don't look like anything too special. And then, of course, if you want to swipe over to the left and right, you can access different media sources. You can access your different settings there. This is designed to work like a tablet. It still takes a little bit of a second to actually boot up, which is a little bit annoying. When you put the vehicle in reverse, you can see my tester has a nice backup camera with a full 360 camera view as well. When you push that, you can see it gives you a top-down view, which is nice. It has parking sensors front and rear. It has rear cross traffic alert. This is, again, a pretty nice camera, although the resolution of some of the newer Mercedes systems I find to be a little bit better. Same with BMW, and of course, same with Audi. Your climate control, you can see, has dual zone automatic climate control. Your heated and cooled seats are accessed from the touchscreen here, which this can be super frustrating at times when you first boot it up, because it takes a second to actually boot up. But once you get the hang of this system, it's relatively easy to use. You have a big volume knob here, some hard buttons, of course, for your defrost, your skip tuning button, your hazard switches over there. In terms of the horn, The horn sounds pretty typical standard fare. It's nothing super, meaty sounding, but at least it doesn't sound like a weak horn. I also like the orifice crystal shifter that you get with the Recharge models. Like typical other Volvos with this powertrain, you have to kick back twice to go to drive, kick back forward to go reverse twice, and push the P button to go to park. Your drive mode selector is over here. You push that in, you can see there's a constant all-wheel drive mode. Pure is your eco mode. It'll try to force the engine in electric only mode mostly. And then there's also hybrid for everyday use, and then sporty. When I go to sporty, it turns on the gas engine automatically and it gives you a tack. So this is the drive mode that enthusiasts are going to want to drive this in. We'll talk about that more later on when we go into the test drive. There's some piano black plastic trim here. There is a pretty lack of storage over here. I found more in the XC90, their SUV. You can see my big iPhone 12 barely fits in the cup holder area over here. And then when you look in the center console, it's nice and padded here, but when you open this up, it's very shallow. You can see there's like no space in here. I have a wallet and I have sunglasses and I have a couple of masks here, but the T8 powertrain, the batteries packs lives kind of underneath here, so this makes for a very shallow and small center console. Above me you can see there's a nice panoramic sunroof that's included on my tester. There's also some LED lighting in here, which is nice. I love this rearview mirror, which is very upscale looking. It's frameless. The rear window sunshade is power operated. It goes up and down if you'd like. And then over here you can see the glove box is pretty big, which is good because there's not really any other storage in this vehicle. But overall, the cabin is typical Volvo. It has the typical Volvo strengths, but some weaknesses as well, mainly around this infotainment system. But other than that, it's pretty comfortable, it's pretty spacious, and I love the massaging seats in this car. Now, when Volvo brought the long wheelbase version of the S90 to America in 2018, they really improved the shortcoming, of course, of the short wheelbase model, which was a back seat that was a little bit cramped for the segment. Now, this new one here, as you can see, has seriously the biggest back seats in the segment. Volvo says you get around 40 inches of legroom. 40 inches of legroom is 3 inches more than what you get, of course, in the latest BMW 5 Series, Mercedes-Benz E-Class, and Audi A6. But let me get back here and show you guys the space at 5'7". Wow, this is a really, really nice back seat. Now, I did have to duck my head slightly because the roof line was actually a little bit lower than I expected, but this is just absolutely insane here with the space. I was not expecting this. This has more second row seat legroom versus the last XC90 that I tested. But you can see getting back here, I can literally stretch my legs out. There's a good amount of foot space underneath there. This one, of course, being the hybrid model, does give you, of course, this big hump here for the center passenger. So this is really better for two people. This is where the hybrid componentry lives, of course. There are 2 USB-C charging ports there. The lounge package of my tester includes some niceties, but first let me shut the door. No soft closed doors, but you can see here there is a power retractable sunshade that's part of the lounge package that my tester has. Same beautiful leather, wood, metal trim of course on the speaker grills. The seats back here are heated and ventilated, so wasn't expecting that. But that's included, of course, with the lounge package that you get with this Inscription model. You can see there's 4-zone automatic climate control in this vehicle, so you can individually choose what temperature you'd like. Sadly, no massaging seats back here, but you can see the seats themselves. They're quilted in the same beautiful soft leather. If you fold this down, the lounge package also includes this luxury armrest. Now, when you fold down the luxury armrest, you can see there's 2 cup holders over here, which is nice. There's a nice padded center console storage, and then there's a little bit more storage over here where you could store maybe like a wallet, keys, cell phone, stuff like that. And then you have your USB charging ports over there. So overall, the back seat is massive. If you want the biggest back seat in the European luxury sedan segment and you don't want to go to like an S-Class or 7 Series, this is the one you're going to want to get. Now, for such a big sedan, you're probably wondering, well, what's powering this thing? If you're thinking it's a straight 6-cylinder engine or a V8, you're really just stuck in the past, because Volvo has done away with their 6-cylinder engines and their V8s years ago. Instead, they introduced a new family of 4-cylinder turbo engines that are also turbocharged and supercharged. And if you guys go for a T8 Recharge model, they're also electrified. Now, if you guys have been around modern Volvos, you'll know this powertrain pretty well. This is the 2-liter turbocharged, supercharged 4-cylinder that's augmented, of course, by an electric motor that offers an additional 87 horsepower. It's also all-wheel drive. There's an electric motor on the back axle. That's what gives you all-wheel drive. There's no mechanical linkage, of course, between the front engine or the gas engine that drives the front wheels only and the electric motor which drives the rear wheels. It all goes out through an 8-speed Aisin-derived automatic transmission. So not a CVT, it's an 8-speed stepped automatic. Now, the engine on its own makes 313 horsepower, but when you augment it with the electric motor, it makes a total of 400 horsepower and 472 pound-feet of torque. This makes it one of the most powerful in its class. I mean, you can compare this, of course, to a BMW 530 xDrive E. which offers 288 horsepower, but this again offers 400 horsepower. So this is a pretty healthy amount of power. Volvo says you should get to 60 in around 4.8 seconds, and fuel economy is rated to get 30 mpg combined. That's the only rating that we really have. It's 5 mpg better versus the T6 model, which has this powertrain minus the electric park that offers 316 horsepower if you guys go for a T6. Now, because of the electric motors and the battery pack, this is a relatively heavy vehicle. It weighs in at around 4,700 pounds. Now, speaking of which, the battery is 11.6 kilowatt hours, and you'll get a total of 21 miles on electric only range, which is okay. It's a little bit better than the BMW, but it's still about half what I expect a modern plug-in hybrid to do in today's modern age. Now, of course, coming over here to the side, you can see here's the charge port. If you open this up, it's a J1772 plug. If you want, you can charge this on level 1, which will take about 12 hours to fully charge the vehicle. Or if you guys have a level 2 charger, which you'll install with a 240 volt outlet at your home, it'll take roughly 2.5 hours to charge. So I highly recommend that if you guys plan to use the electric only range. But overall, performance is good. I'm still a little disappointed by the lower range in this vehicle, but overall with 400 horsepower, it's really hard to argue with that. Now, about 5 years ago, when Volvo started completely redoing their entire lineup, I've pretty much driven everything, starting with, of course, the wonderful XC90, to the S60, to the XC40, the V60. However, the one car that I haven't had a chance yet to drive is their flagship sedan, the S90. This, remember, came out back in 2017. It replaced the old S80, and it sits at the top of Volvo's lineup. This is actually the largest vehicle they make, as I said earlier, at 200 inches long. This is longer than the XC90, which is interesting. And of course, I'm driving the top powertrain option, which is the T8, the turbo supercharged hybrid option, which is an interesting powertrain. If you guys have never driven, one of these modern Volvos, I have it in power mode right now, which is the sport setting. The cool thing about this thing is it behaves just like a traditional gas car whenever your foot goes to the floor. Now, I will say that the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine still doesn't make the most wonderful noises. I would prefer something that makes a little bit more of a smoother, howl, like a straight 6 that you find in the new Mercedes and the new BMW 5 Series, of course. But the electrified option is something we'll talk about in just a moment. But Volvo basically says you'll get to 60 in under 5 seconds with this car because it has 400 horsepower, 472 pound-feet of torque. I've sampled this powertrain in a lot of other Volvos. When you're driving this thing in power and in gas mode, it pretty much lives up to my expectations as a very nice powertrain that still doesn't have the most wonderful noises, but the car does feel quick enough. It feels like it has power and torque everywhere. It's paired up with a traditional 8-speed Aisin automatic, which provides smooth shifts, not quite as crisp and fast as the ZF transmissions, of course, that you find in the competition. But that's not the mission of Volvos in general. They're not designed to be the sportiest. They're designed to be comfortable. They're designed to coddle you in luxury and comfort, of course. And of course, if you get the T8 powertrain, you can put it into a hybrid mode here, and the car's engine will shut off. It'll coast along in electric power alone, which is nice. It gives you around 21 miles of range. In my real world of testing, I've been averaging around 18. That's the most that I've been able to get. The interesting about this T8 powertrain is you put it into pure, it will try to force the powertrain into just electric only mode. However, the problem is when you have it in pure mode and you have it in electric only mode right now, you can hear there's no engine on right now. I put my foot down. This is literally my foot to the floor without the kick point. It is so bloody slow because this car only has 87 horsepower from the electric motor. The rear axle is also just driven electrically. Now, if I go into hybrid mode here, in hybrid mode, if I put my foot down, there's a little bit of an area where I can't go past that transition point. Otherwise, if I do, the gas engine comes on, and it comes on with a noticeable shove that isn't always the most refined. It's not the smoothest transition, which I think Volvo really needs to do something to beef up the battery pack, which they made a little bit larger this year. It's 11.6 kilowatt hours. I'd like to see double the range. I'd like to see more horsepower as well from the electric motor side. I should be able to drive this thing on electric power alone without the gas engine constantly having to intervene because it just is so bloody slow in regular driving. I found myself most of the time just putting this car into sport because it's so darn sluggish in electric only mode that the gas engine always has to come on. But when you put it into power mode here, we'll brake torque it for a second. This is where you get the full 400 horsepower, and there's actually a little bit of wheel spin or wheel hop and torque steer there that you noticed. But yes, that'll get to 60 in 4.8 seconds. That actually surprised me when you do the brake torque of this car, which it doesn't sound the most refined. You don't expect something like that in a luxury car. But you have to admire Volvo, of course, for, you know, doing 400 horsepower. A little bit of torque steer there. That's interesting considering this is all-wheel drive. But remember, that electric motor in the back, or that rear axle, is only powered by that electric motor. So you only have, you know, as much, very limited traction assist. Most of the times the gas engine is supplying all the power to the front. This is pretty similar to my RAV4 Prime, to be honest. However, the electric driving range is terrible, and it doesn't have really the ability to coast alone on electric power without feeling like you're driving something that's so bloody slow. So I like the T8 powertrain, but I think it's time for Volvo to really up the battery, up the performance from the electric motor side. They could do better. They could do better. Now, I will say this is better than the last BMW plug-in hybrid that I drove, in the sense that it does offer a little bit more performance, a little bit better electric-only range, and in general, it just feels like a much better, you know, more cohesively designed car. But when you drive it like a gas car, the T8 Recharge S90 really does have decent performance for me. It's not sporty in the sense that the steering doesn't offer much feedback. The body, the suspension stays, you know, pretty soft. Even though I have the four-corner air suspension, you can feel the wallowiness of this car. It is not what I'd say, you know, sporty. Drive, you know, the BMW or the Mercedes or the Audi if you want that. But let's try another acceleration pull here. I want to see if it bounces again. It actually spins the tire when it shifts into second. That is hilarious. You feel it in the front wheel on the driver's side, spinning that wheel. That is so funny. But you know what? I find it very comical. When you drive this thing just as a gas car, it is absolutely hilarious. Now, in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 25 miles to the gallon, which isn't wonderful, but it's not bad. I think that it's supposed to get 30 mpg, which you should be able to do in more city driving. I've been primarily on the highway. But in general, I find that the visibility in here is good. The seats are very comfortable. In fact, I forgot to turn on my massaging seat, but I'm sitting here getting a massage, and it's only available, of course, on this Inscription model when you go for the luxury lounge package. But that backrest massage is still one of the best ones in the industry. I have all of Volvo's latest driver assistance tech. Their Pilot Assist, which is actually standard on the S90, which is nice. Typically, they make you pay extra for an advanced package. There is an advanced package on my test here, but it throws in a heads-up display and a 360 camera instead of the Volvo Pro or Pilot Assist. You can see the transition is very jarry. I had it in hybrid mode there, my foot went down. I could feel the electric motor trying to propel the car, but it wasn't enough, so my foot went down a little bit more, and then of course the gas engine kicked on and it's just jerky. So that is where I think the T8 powertrain in Volvo in general needs a little bit of work. But when you're not driving this thing super aggressively, it's perfectly fine. My recommendation, when you're in hybrid mode, drive it at like 6/10. When you're in power mode, then you can drive this more aggressively, because the gas engine is kind of forced to stay on all the time instead of trying to rely on the electric power, which just doesn't have enough to move this nearly 5,000 pound, you know, beast of a sedan. In terms of quietness, Volvo is also really good in that regard. It's very supremely quiet in here, even more so when it's driving on just electric assist only. I also really like the visibility in this car. I think that it's easy to drive and see out of. It's very comfortable. The seats are one of the most plushest that I've ever felt. The interior still feels really nice. The steering wheel also feels good in your hands. It's heated and cool, or seats are heated and cooled as well. I mean, there's very little annoyances with this car, aside from the fact that its T8 electrified powertrain is a disappointment. And the cool thing about the S90 is when you drive one of these, you're part of an exclusive club, because Volvo really doesn't sell very many of these. It is a rare sight indeed, and I almost forgot about this car until Volvo finally dropped it off for testing this week. So it's time to throw a little bit of numbers into the equation here when we talk about the conclusion to this video on the 2021 Volvo S90. Now, first of all, if you guys never see an S90 sedan out on the road, that's because Volvo only managed to sell around 1,900 of these in the US in 2020. That's right, I said 1,900. In terms of sales, it outsold vehicles only like the Acura RLX, the Lexus GS, the Jaguar XF. All of them have been discontinued for 2021 or 2020, along with the Cadillac XT6. I think this actually outsold that. Compare this to a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, where Mercedes does around 20,000 units in that same time frame, so 10 to 1 versus the Volvo. And it's pretty rare. You'll be driving a car that's part of an exclusive club, especially if you want a sedan that's not German, that's not Japanese, that's not American. This is, remember, a Swedish luxury sedan, and it certainly has some appealing aspects to it. As you guys saw from my review, I like the ride quality, I like the interior comfort, I like the massaging seats, I like the power, although I don't love the electric part of this car. I like the 400 horsepower, and it does make it quicker versus a standard T6. I also like the styling of this car. You can see for 2021, they made it look even prettier, although I imagine a lot of people would probably just choose the wagon version, especially if you want the versatility. The sedan doesn't really offer that much trunk space, and if you guys get the wagon, you get around 53 cubic feet of space, so that is highly tempting. Now, of course, when you're talking about a luxury sedan, you also have to talk about the money factor. And this car is a lot bigger versus the competitors that offers a huge back seat. So if you want a big back seat, this is the one that you want to get. It starts at around $51,500 for a base T6 model with all-wheel drive. That actually makes the S90 around $3,000 less expensive versus its German competitors, which are around $55,000. Now, of course, if you want the plug-in hybrid T8 Recharge, that's going to cost you at least $60,000. You're going to pay $60,000 whether you go for the R Design or you go for the Inscription model. The Inscription model is the one you want if you want the massaging seats. The R Design does not offer massaging seats. You have to tick the option, of course, for a luxury lounge package. My tester also has the 4-corner air suspension, the Bowers & Wilkins sound system, which is totally worth the upcharge, the premium paint, and then of course the advanced package. All in, my tester comes in at just over $70,000, which is expensive, but keep in mind the T8 models qualify for a $5,400 federal tax credit, which you won't get on the T6 model. So that could potentially make this car an enticing option, considering Volvo charges around $9,000 more for the T8 versus the T6. It makes this car roughly a little bit more expensive, which you could justify. It's just, for me, kind of disappointing as a plug-in hybrid. This also makes the S90 T8 a lot less expensive versus the last Mercedes-Benz E-Class that I tested a couple of weeks ago, which came in at around $84,000. So if you want a Swedish luxury sedan with one of the biggest back seats and just happen to want something that's plug-in hybrid with 21 miles of range, the S90 is certainly worth a look. But keep in mind, Volvo offers the same powertrain, of course, in the XC60 and the XC90, which are much more desirable vehicles, or even the V90, which only comes in T6 form. But in general, I found there's plenty to like about the S90, and if you want something that's super rare, super exclusive, this is really one of the best ones that you can buy. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2021 Volvo S90 Recharge. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.